it now. Okay, so we definitely have this for the posterity of generations.
Okay, cool. All right. You want to get rolling, guys?
Let's get rolling.
Sure.
Who wants to kick it off? I mean, Andrew, you want to roll with it?
Sure. Well, you know what? In reference to, obviously, for those of you that were on the reboot last week, right, we're making some changes. What we're doing is we're taking it a little slower because we obviously realize that certain things that when we try to implement them really fast breaks shit, and I think that you guys realize that. So we're taking it just a little bit slower. What we are going to do is we're going to open up like a mailbag for you guys that you can just drop in questions, and then we'll try and throughout the week, and then we'll try and address them on webinars, right? Like an Ask Justin.
Ask Justin.
I know Justin likes his name, so what we'll do is we'll make an Ask Justin mailbag, and you guys can drop those in and stuff like that. So that's one thing. What we're really here to discuss today, and then we'll obviously discuss anything that you guys want to really talk about, is reported across search engine land and a bunch of these different websites. If you guys want to just, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Google put out something which, and I'd like to give a lot of insight about this, and obviously I want to hear everybody's feedback as well, right? They put out something in reference to doorway pages. Now, I thought it was pretty funny because we have visited the doorway page multiple times, right, Jake? I mean, we've beat the doorway page thing to death. Doorway pages back in the day were. Let's just go back with a little history, right? So years ago, before we were smart enough to actually figure out how to automate some of the site builds and stuff like that, we used to create these 2 to 3 page websites, 4-page, 5-page max, and we used to create these websites, that used to target, whether it be long-tailed keywords or specific geo-targeted areas, and they would like these little tiny thin websites. Sometimes we'd use Web 2.0 properties, really kind of before Web 2.0 really became like a coined term of Web 2.0. And we used to create these pretty thin properties and kind of slap them out there to do a bunch of different things, right? It was to push other people off the page, us to get front and center, but really, we knew that if we were on page 1 and we had links going back to our site that, we would crush it. And then we got a little smarter and we decided that we were going to start 301 redirecting that.
Yep.
And then we started playing around with some cloaking shit that if people did stuff, it would automatically redirect them to where we wanted to. We kind of took our lead, and I hate to say that from the pharmaceutical and porn industry, because those guys were always cutting edge as far as what they were doing online. We would always start to follow those people that were on page 1 of Google for, Xanax and porn and all sorts of stuff, just to see the techniques that these guys were using. And yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be some comments lighting up going, yeah, that was the only reason why you were tracking them. But,
we all know. Yeah, we know you, Andrew.
Slick, they would always come up with some really innovative ways, because Google was always going after these guys, and they still will always go after things that they consider to be adult maturity, adult and mature content, stuff with the online pharmaceuticals. Google will always target those guys, so those guys got to really stay well ahead of the curve. They really do. But where we took a lot of our tactics from were, like I said, were things that these guys were doing. And what they were doing, they were building these really thin websites. They put them up on, whether it be some, free hosting, or they have a HostGator account or a Bluehost or what was equivalent back in the day. And my mind's escaping me about what those hosting companies were. And they put up these websites, and they were automatically forcing redirects. They were doing all sorts of crazy stuff, right? So that was what Google referred to as doorway pages back in the day. And what's really interesting is that, since then, Google puts out these manuals to their employees about what to look for, like quality guideline manuals and stuff. Since then, iframe overlays, all the stuff that Double Agent does, all of that stuff has actually been removed out of the quality search manuals. It almost seemed like, we couldn't figure out exactly the reason why Google removed them, because they were there back in the day, but now they're gone. And what we realized was that, Google was looking for patents for some of the stuff that we're doing right now, which is, full-page ads. Because obviously, this is what it comes down to, right? Google has one person that they answer to, and that's their shareholders. Everything that Google does is in reference to what their shareholders, the bottom line of their shareholders. Those are the only people that Google really, really, really cares about. Without their shareholders, obviously, Google dies. So, Google actually had written a couple of patents recently. They submitted them in reference to full-page ads, because now Google knows that they can charge people through the nose for a full-page ad. I mean, if you go to, I'm trying to think, a lot of the different big news websites, Washington Post, a couple of these websites, you'll actually show up to these websites and you'll get a full-page ad.
That's right.
And then you got to click on something in order to get to the page that you wanted to. This is my feelings about this. Once again, Google's not going to smack you having a full-page ad. They won't, because they're actually putting in patents for it themselves. I wish that we had patented our idea, so we could have sold it to Google. We would have made a whole lot more money. But at the end of the day, every single update that Google makes is to push people into AdWords, because that's what's making money for their shareholders, right? So when Google starts to see things that are working, Google starts to get nervous because, once again, it affects people buying into their ads. If you look at the PBN update, right, that came out a little while ago and was smacking PBNs, what Google basically did was, Google went after those people that thought they were, quote-unquote, manipulating PageRank or whatever else, and obviously most of us never stopped doing it, even though Google said, hey, we are coming after you, right? Now, what makes this very different, this little snippet that they put out there, it makes it, this animal is very different than the last ones that I've seen. And I'll give you a lot of history. Once again, I've been doing this pre-Google, so I've seen every update that's rolled out. I've lived through every update that's rolled out, the good, the bad, the ugly. But there are a couple of different things about this statement that was made that has been made previously. All right, so let's just roll back. First of all, if we go back to, I want to say 2004, Google made, Google actually started to hit some of these quote-unquote doorway pages, and they were those thin little websites, 5 pages, and they were smacking them. Once again, with the Panda update that rolled back out again, smack them again. Okay, anything that was thin content, anything that was, for the most part, duplicate content, and we're not talking about very well spun content. We're talking about duplicate content for the most part. We weren't even spinning out our content at the time. We were just popping them right out, domain after domain after domain, subdomain after subdomain after subdomain, and we didn't really care, because believe it or not, Google didn't really care. Yeah. So, Google, after they hit everybody in like 2004, 2005, they basically said, oh, we're going to go after these doorway pages. Now, that was interesting because Google hit those pages, and then after the fact came out and said, we're going to hit, we're going to continue to hit these. Panda just rolled out. Like, Google didn't telegraph their position about what they were going to do, that we're going to hit low-quality sites. They just rolled it out, and then after the fact said, yep, this is what we did. Penguin, same thing. They just started smacking, it was interesting, going from Panda to Penguin, right? And I think that these were the most 2 interesting updates together, right? Panda smacked all of the low-quality domains, right? And then everybody said, okay, you know what? I'm going to abandon the whole, trying to get multiple properties. I'm going to just concentrate on 1 or 2 money properties. And then, they were going out, they were building links, they were trying to make that very, laser-targeted, really hyper-relevant. And then Google comes around and smacks those websites that are over-optimized, right? So they didn't like the under-optimized, they didn't like the over-optimized. It wasn't the fact that Google didn't like it. Google didn't like the fact that, people weren't buying ads. That was, and a smack like that, we can go back to, like, military tactics and stuff, and I'm a huge World War II buff. You guys all know that I was in the Marine Corps. And I'll just lay it out to you real fast, right? So in World War II, you used to have guys walking down a path, and they used to set up a tripwire for the kill zone. And the kill zone was, they would have, claymore mines, and they would have other, improvised explosives that would go off once a tripwire was hit. The Japanese were really smart, and I'm not going to offend any Japanese people that are in the room, and if I do, I don't really care, but because I offend everybody equally. What they would do is they would wait for the point guys to go through about 200 meters in front or 100 meters in front, wait for these guys to hit the tripwire, and the kill zone would blow up all the troops behind them. So now what happened was, now you separated the troops, right? So you got your lead element that was up front. They weren't touched, but they just blew up all their buddies behind them, okay? And people are probably going like, what the hell does this have to do with anything? Well, the tactic was that now the guys that survived, that were up front, they didn't know what the hell to do. They didn't know whether to move forward. They didn't know whether to move backwards. They were scared stiffless to do anything. They basically hunkered down right where they were, which was an ambush site that, boom, then they started getting hit. And if you look at what Google does with a lot of their updates, they do the same thing. They'll hit you on one end, hit you on the other end, and they kind of leave you sitting there going, okay, well, what do I do? I'm afraid to move forward. I'm afraid to move backwards. And guys basically, they stop doing things, which is what Google wants them to do. It usually shakes up an SEO community. People leave SEO. They go, I'm going to go back to my day job. I'm going to start, building houses or whatever I was doing before because I can't stand the updates. Well, it's sort of like being a Mets or a Jets fan. If you don't have the stomach for updates, get out. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
If you don't have the stomach to be able to, it's the game. If you don't have the stomach for the updates, get out. But with that being said, let's just take a quick look at this particular message that was sent out, okay? I have never seen Google ever before telegraph that they were going to go ahead and hit sites like this, okay? And I don't necessarily think that the sites that we're building is exactly what they're referring to, okay? They're referring to, redirection of pages. Now, with all of our pages using double agent, you're staying on the page, and somebody might say it's semantics, but I don't believe it is because I'm looking at Google's patents, and their patents are very similar to what double agent actually does. They do have a close button, which we don't. We could very easily put one in if that ever became an issue. A little small one or whatever else, but whatever. It doesn't really make much of a difference. But I've never seen Google telegraph before the fact that they were going to take an action, okay? The only time that I ever saw that actually happen was the disavow tool, okay? And then after the PBN, update, if you will, and that debacle, there was just, it was a really bad time in SEO when the disavow tool came out because you had SEOs turning in SEOs left and right. They did all the jobs for Google. And in reference to the PBN update, most of the people that got hit, what they were doing was they were pulling, they go, oh my God, other people got hit. So what they did was they turned off the links going back to their website. And there's a specific Google patent that goes into the fact that Google is looking at what the reactions of an SEO is, or what their reaction to different things that they put out are. So for instance, even just, when you build links to a certain site, you'll start seeing it, moving around page 1. Sometimes it'll drop back to page 2, or sometimes it'll go from page 1 back to page 4. And in that interim period, Google's waiting to see what you do because it's the only way that they can figure out whether you're in control of certain things or not, okay? And if you start removing those links because you thought it was a negative, that link, provided a negative result, then Google will actually go ahead and penalize your website. So my advice on this is I'm truly not worried, but I wouldn't start undoing things that you've already done because if you do, you're sending a signal going, hey, look at exactly what I did. This is what we had going on. Now this is the big change that we had, and it's a huge signal to Google that says, all right, well, you were in control of stuff that you were manipulating, and you either did it or you didn't. You either took an action or you didn't take an action.
Right.
My honest feeling about this is I'm not 100% sure how. I think that Google has an issue with this. I don't think they know how to stop it. They truly don't. and I think it's a scary thing for them. So what they do is they put out some propaganda like they always have in the past, and they wait to see what happens. They hope that people jump out, and and I hope that people do jump out, because then it only opens up further niches for us that are smart enough to stick around. But by looking at all of the patents, there's nothing new. I mean, in that statement, it talked about Google's algorithm being able to, be changed. There's no new algorithmic, changes that they've put into, patent submissions that would allow them to detect this, unless it's something that they're not putting out via patent. So, once again, I think that I think it's a lot of hype. I'm truly not concerned. I'm not changing anything that I'm doing. I would highly suggest that you stay the course. But let's further discuss it. Hey guys, what's if you guys want to chime in, what's your take?
Yeah, I have something. I got a couple of things. But first off, I just want to say that it is Google always is a oh man, what's it called? Whenever you say one thing but you do another. Hypocrite. Sleight of hand. Yeah, sleight of hand. Hypocrite was the word. But if you think about AdWords are doorway pages. Okay, they can direct multiple different ads all going into the same page, and so right there, I think it's so funny that Google is taking this step. I think they really realize the power of the doorway pages because they work, and I don't think they'd do a specific target like this in this fashion if the doorway pages or whatever I don't even call it doorway pages. But if this method of SEO didn't work so well.
Yeah, they work, and like Andy said a moment ago, the problem is that what they do is they cut Google out of the money equation, and because they live by quarterly earnings reports, they would rather insinuate themselves back into the equation so they collect the money. But we all know how well we've used. There are so many different examples, and Andrew, maybe you could talk about this too. There are different types of doorway pages. They might not fall into the specific definition that was shot out in Monday's release that we referenced here on the page. But for example, I've used a feeder strategy for AdSense sites for a long time, where I buy sort of satellite sites and I load them up with Google-friendly text, LSI, and all that kind of stuff, and then I use the pin action of people coming to those through long-tail searches and cloak them over to my money site. Can you see anything like this being affected by what they're talking about?
I mean, look, potentially they could hit whatever they so choose to hit.
Oh, sure.
But, I mean, if you look at it, based on what they were, once again, I always like to go by the letter of what is said, right? So if I want to go by the letter of what's said, I look at it and I go, well, let's see. I got Yelp that's going to get hit. I got Yellow Pages. I got Mercantile Circle that's going to get hit. I got, a ton of these different websites that are going to get hit based on, them saying, oh, we're going to go after geo-targeted websites. Well, shit, I mean, that's almost every local directory under the sun, and they've already had their legal bout with Yelp. In reference to your scenario, lay it out to me one more time just so I can make sure that I got it correct.
Well, I guess essentially what it is, this graphic that's on the screen right now is kind of a representation of how I'm doing the doorway or the feeder pages. I'm just not using links to move people over. I'm using a plugin that cloaks them directly over to the money site. And what I'm doing is I'm putting a lot of bot-friendly text on these feeder sites. And I guess basically what I'm hoping to do, well, and it's more than a hope, it works great. It's one of the reasons why they get so ticked off at SEO. What I'm doing is qualifying for a bunch of long tails that somehow then show up in searches, and when people go to click on that feeder site, the next thing you know, they're at my money site.
Well, now this is the other thing, and you said something in there which I thought was pretty interesting. So I'm going to just drill down on it, and it's not like to, it's not like to beat a dead horse here, right? But
Sure.
he said that you use something to cloak and redirect. Now the question is, are you overlaying or are you cloaking and redirecting? Because somebody actually put a question in that says mobile redirects, and yes, mobile does redirect. Mobile has to redirect. They don't, a lot of phones don't have the ability to to host JavaScript and everything else, and a lot of the needed things in order to be able to do an overlay on a device. It's, once again, not a limitation of DA, it's a limitation of your device, and we had to obviously do something to account for that. But there are lots of people with a mobile device that will go to a website and they'll be redirected to their mobile website, and there's obviously no issue with that. Google understands a redirection based on device. But when you say redirect, I think you're talking about overlaying, right? So they're actually not leaving that page, is that correct, or are they actually redirecting?
I've used a 302 redirect as well, but I've also used, it amounts to, what's the technical definition when you see the URL you see the originating URL in the upper bar, but you actually land at, you're actually seeing the destination site in the screen. Yeah, that's a redirect. And on a 302 redirect, I mean, your rankings will only sit there for a certain point within the search engines until Google takes hold of that 302 or 301, whatever redirect you're doing. Yep.
So.
Yeah, they do fall off over time.
Yeah, but I think.
Yeah, Jake.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jake. What were you saying?
No,
So
I was saying if you're overlaying the site and the original URL staying the same, then it's not technically a redirect, it's just an overlay, and that would be fine.
yeah, and I think, Joe, what you're talking about, and I think I know the plugin, of course, is that, because we talked about it, is a cloaked redirection, and it specifically only redirects if depending on the user agent and the IP address. Is that the one that you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, I would say that Google won't even see that redirection at all, but the visitor, of course, they will see the redirect. It's a nifty thing. But I think right there, and this falls into the same category as double agent, is these are techniques that I honestly don't think that Google is really specifically targeting with this doorway page update. Okay? I think just exactly as you put with this graphic here, I think they see doorway pages as, they're like pages that people click on, and then they have text links that are all directing people to one landing page. And I think that's a huge footprint. Because think about that. If you have, 10 different sites, all with super similar content, and they don't interlink between pages and maybe even like outside authority sites, in your niche, but they see a page where every single page on the website all links into one central landing page, well, that's, a very, very obvious, signal that it's a doorway network,
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's obvious, and it probably is something where they can make the argument that it is a poor user experience because, whenever page one is dominated by 7 or 8 links that essentially lead to the same sort of thin content directing you to another site, you probably do jeopardize the user experience. But the genesis of the whole thing is money, because they would do it themselves if they could find a way to do it and not cause an uproar. They just don't like the fact that we're doing it without having to pay a toll.
Right. Pay the troll toll.
Yeah.
So. Well, here, I'll go to the next screen. Yeah. Do we have any questions on what the doorway pages are?
Well, somebody's asking here, hold on one second, there was a couple questions. What is double agent?
What is double agent? Double agent is the flagship plugin by SemEasy that allows you to very stealthily overlay any website on top of your website, so that Google crawls the site and sees A, essentially, but the visitor, when they're looking at it, they see B. And B could be your landing page, client site, AdSense page, affiliate product, It's really one of the things that SEMeasy has really what's the word, is like mastered or like really led the way in.
Yep.
And what's great about it is it allows a fine-tuned level of control too. So for those of you, many of you are already familiar with this, but the great thing about it is that if you build a nationwide site for, say, equine veterinarians, you can easily peel off counties that are served by a particular equine veterinarian and overlay that particular vet's site and charge a rental for it. So, conceivably you could do this for every county in the United States as a lead gen model and do very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very nice. And that honestly is a way that a lot of members are using the double agent plugin.
Jake, what is your opinion? It's a little bit off the subject of doorway pages, but I know you think about this kind of thing a lot. What is your opinion about the potential damage if Google ever goes specifically after something like double agent? How would it look if they did that, and what would the collateral damage likely be if they did? Could they?
The one thing they could look for, and it's kind of evident in the way they attack PBNs, was just looking for a footprint, but there's really no way that they could go after the traditional doorway page itself. All you have to do is, if you search on Google for like Matt Cutts, I think it was called, how to get your website online, he goes into talking about you should be creating doorway pages. It's really the way you could get your website to be if you're trying to do a geo-targeted, you should make a landing page that mentions that specific city or state name. If you want to be ranking for a service that Google doesn't know you're affiliated with, well then you got to make a page about that service. So it's kind of like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing kind of thing, where the quality assurance team is going, hey, we got to start looking at these doorway pages, and you got the head of anti-spam going, well, those really aren't traditional doorway pages because we need them in order to know what the site's about. And then you got the head of the quality assurance people who actually write the manuals going, don't worry about interstitial ad displays, which is those full-page ads which become more and more popular over the past, I'd say, 16 to 24 months. It's really, I don't even know what's going on in Google's mind exactly with regards to doorway pages, because Google doesn't even know themselves what they want to do with them yet. But what would the collateral damage be if they decide to go over a tactic such as overlaying with an iframe? Well, then you're going to see sites like the New York Times, sites like the Washington Post, really any page that uses some form of full-page pop-up. You'd even see stuff, any site that you see use Bounce Exchange is the perfect example. It's a delayed full-screen interstitial advertisement that's displayed only when the user swipes up and to the left, but it's the same technology. It's a JavaScript-controlled iframe. So there's really nothing they could do to kill it entirely, because there's nothing for them specifically to go after.
Well, it would also, that would require them to go after anybody who has a pop-up that says, would you like to join my Facebook page? Would you like to join my email? I mean, there's millions of websites doing it, which is the reason why we chose the specific technology that we put out, because it's mixed in with everything else that's already currently out there.
It's true. All those little nuances
I read recently,
hard to pick up.
I'm sorry?
I was saying all the little nuances between something like a pop-up and double agent, it would just be almost impossible to have some type of algorithm to say, well, this is double agent versus something that's just a pop-up.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I learned recently that Googlebot apparently doesn't scroll, and so if you use some sort of a methodology that triggers an action upon scrolling a page, there are some plugins that will throw pop-ups and do various things. When somebody scrolls 50% down the page or something like that, the Googlebot is completely impervious to that because they just don't have a scrolling methodology built in. I find it hard to imagine that they couldn't develop one, but I thought it was interesting just the same.
Right.
All right, so are there any questions?
Yeah, we got a couple questions. Let's see.
There's lots of them.
Okay, cool. I'm missing those.
Justin, you want to hit some of the, we'll throw out, God, there's been a couple of people that wrote a couple of paragraphs in
yeah,
there.
I'm scrolling up. I got to scroll up to read over what we got. Top 10 sites, site.
All right, so let me just scroll back up, and it says, is doorway pages the same thing as landing pages? Once again, try and nail down Google for an exact definition of anything. I look at a doorway page as a doorway page doesn't have a link to anything else in the site. It's only pushing you to one place. Okay. I guess you could debate with me about whether that is correct or not, but I mean that's what Google used to refer to doorway pages. That there was no other use of the page than to just try and grab a long tail keyword and then, you know, get you into that site, but you couldn't get to that page anywhere else on the website. There was no other navigation to that page at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, on that subject, and I was talking with a good friend who uses PPC a lot. Google gives a very low quality score for any AdSense landing page that doesn't have deeper navigation. So really, I mean, that might right there be one of the main things they're looking for. And Matt here, Markey, a little bit ago said, you know, one of the things that he's thinking of doing, which you can experiment with, and we're definitely experimenting and watching this. You know, we say, you know, we laugh at it essentially, but really we take it very seriously, is to add more outbound links to each site to be able to dilute it. That very well could be a very key indicator right there of having all links essentially just go to one page. I mean, if in the very simplest terms, that is a doorway page right there.
All right.
Okay, let me just go down. Hold on one second. Okay.
So does a local site...
I just got access to the questions, guys, so I'll try to help.
Yeah. Does a local site with 100 separate pages targeting 100 separate long-tail keywords count as a doorway page? It really depends on what the user is doing once they land on that page. If they're just being forwarded over to another page, okay, that is a doorway page. If they're there if they're landing on a page and they're staying there, I mean, it's a good question. I'm saying like what Google says is sending them, you know, with links all going over to one central website. That's a doorway. But if they're landing on that page and they're not, you know, just being forwarded off to another page, then that's not a doorway page.
You know, and once again, we're going based on our best experience. I mean, Google's not saying that this is this and this is this. You know, we're trying to, you know, we try to go through our best experience as far as what Google has put out, how they've defined things in the past. You know, is it possible that, you know, that Google will take an action on something that, you know, that you're doing? Yes. I mean, you're in internet marketing, you're in SEO, you run that risk every single day. The point is to try and, you know, limit the amount of risks that you're taking, obviously. And, you know, but once again, could Google at any given period of time just say, we don't like something and we are going to remove these sites? Yes, they can. And do they need to give you a reason? No.
Right.
Their reason is, well, we're Google.
Well, and I think also importantly, too, is that nobody has ever needed to jump the day that something broke from Google in terms of what they said. It's never resulted in anything that within a very short period of time needed action. And moreover, you know, they're so good at deception and sort of using their press releases like this to sort of propagate that deception that I don't think you want to fly off the handle anyway. Plus, you know, we've talked about the examples of the Washington Post and the New York Times. You know, there are a ton of different legitimate examples where if they overreact on this and they do something that's impetuous, will get them in a lot of trouble from a lot of different fronts. So whatever response they decide to come up with for all this is going to have to be pretty measured, and will probably be rolled out over a pretty extended period of time. And we'll adjust. At least I've always adjusted, and I don't think there's any reason to imagine that I won't in the future.
Absolutely.
We got a lot of questions that are, is this or that considered a doorway page? Okay. Well, first off, I mean, Google is not really specifically saying what is a doorway page, as in, this is the exact code, okay, that they would consider a doorway page, or else it might be pretty easy, huh? But I will say this, okay, this is what I want to direct your attention to, is to look at, and Andrew brought this up earlier, look at what the large authority sites are doing. We're talking, just like you said, all the local directories like Yellow Pages, okay, the Wikipedias, the WebMDs, okay? Look at what they are doing, and if your site is doing the same as their site, essentially you should not be hit, okay? If your site is operating, on a totally different model, such as having all your pages all linking into one central, landing page and not having deeper siloing structures or any type of outbound, authority links and things in that nature, well, that might be a red flag, because that is operating outside of the model of what Google wants to deliver to their organic browsers, their organic visitors. And I'm sure that if Google could just have the same 5 sites pop up over and over again, and then all their ads around those same 5 sites, and people would just keep, using Google still, that's exactly what they would do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I was thinking about that when I put the PowerPoint slides together, and I think for me, building on what you just said, I don't know that I have an ability to define what doorway pages is from a structural standpoint, but I think from a functional standpoint, that graphic that I chose for the second or third slide, whatever it was, it makes the point that it makes it pretty clear to me that a doorway page in Google's eyes is one in which the content is only there to make you move on to another page, and so it's really it's not where business gets transacted. It's not to close the deal. It's just to move you on to another point. And so all of these structures we've talked about in some way have elements of that, because we're using it to grab more slots on the SERPs as opposed to having one quality spot on page 1 that concludes all of our business, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Does it make sense to you guys?
I'm reading these questions.
Yeah, we got Ralph says my SERP Spike site.
That was probably,
Huh?
Say that again, Jake.
I was going to say the explanation you gave right there is probably one of the best I've heard in quite a while. So if the page that they're landing on is a page where they could actually, where the end user, the searcher, can do what they intended to do in the first place, then no, that's not really a doorway page. It's a useful page for an end user. But if it's just there to funnel them somewhere else, well then no, that's a doorway.
Yep, there it is. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, the key right now, stay the course, okay? We are actively monitoring and testing and keeping, almost everybody here has, dozens, or I know a couple guys who have thousands of sites that are built, and using double agent. So we're all monitoring the sites. And if we do see something that comes up that's like, oh, red flag, the SEMeasy community, you guys listening, are going to be the first people to hear about it, because trust me, there's almost no other community who really is using, a doorway page model like we are,
Yeah, it's true. Greg asked a really good question, and I'd like to take a minute to at least give my thoughts on this. He asks, is a landing page to build an email or retargeting list for future follow-up, does that count as a doorway? And Greg, I'm going to just give my opinion. I would say absolutely no, because for me, my landing pages are actually where I conclude business. I'm actually, that is the business I want to accomplish, is to have you enter your name and email address on that page, and then we're done. I mean, I will follow up down the road, but I'm not looking to send you to another page where we begin to do business right away. My intent with a landing page is to go ahead and wrap things up from there and then maintain a relationship with you by email in the future. So I do not see landing pages as doorway pages in any sense.
So Gordon asked, does that mean DA on a site makes it a doorway site? Like I said, when I said doorway, like a doorway sites, like we use, what I meant is that my definition of doorway site might be different than Google's, okay? So I almost say with the quote, the hypothetical quote around it, we're not really using doorway pages and doorway sites, okay? But we have this model where we are mass building pages to get multiple, first page rankings, using the same site and multiple sites. So are we using doorway pages? I mean, we're going at the direction of where we want to really mass cover the SERPs, okay? But we're using a iframe cloak type of model that is different than, the definition of just using a page to direct someone to a central landing page.
Well, this is the other thing I would put in there. If somebody's really nervous, the first thing that they could do is they could take a website, their website, and all they would have to do is just duplicate the website, put it on another server, or put it on, just duplicate the website, and when you're overlaying it, overlay the duplicate website that's just not indexed by Google, and then let Google de-index a website that's not indexed. Who cares?
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, if anybody's really nervous, I mean, I can tell you, I've left all of my stuff up. I'm not changing anything. But if somebody was really nervous, that's what you could do. Duplicate your website. Make sure that if it's a WordPress website, just make sure that you shut off, shut off the robots.txt to make sure that the website is not, searchable by Google, and just buy a different domain and slap it up there. This way you never have, you don't have to worry about that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, once again, it all depends on the level of comfort that you have with certain things,
Yeah, I think we all know that in some way, when we employ SEO, we're trying to manipulate the results of search engine rankings. And so at that point, haven't we already crossed that line where we've left white hat behind, and it's just a matter of degrees and comfort, and then there's a lot of urban myth, and then you've got the deception tactics that are played by Google sort of in response to what we do. And for me, based on my functionality example that I just gave a few minutes ago, SERP shaker pages and things in which where I employ DA are absolutely and positively doorway opportunities for me. I'm moving people along to places where it benefits my bottom line. And so I'll cop to that. Whether or not I'm worried about Google tearing that structure down, is a different story. It doesn't concern me. I will react when I see tangible evidence that they're beginning to make progress, rather than just because it showed up on a Blogspot page somewhere.
Quite true.
So Janet had asked, is a local city page considered a doorway page if they're not linking back to the same service? No, I mean, just because something is a local city page doesn't make it a doorway page at all. I mean, then that would be that Yelp is one big doorway page, Yellow Pages, I mean, I can go on. Angie's List, I mean, all of these different things would all be considered doorway pages if you were worried about geo-targeting a specific area.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, Matt Cutts has said it in previous videos, but think about it. If you're a dentist, I'm not trying to rank for dentists. I'm trying to rank for San Francisco dentists. because I can't fix your teeth if you're in New York and I'm in San Francisco. So, you have to have a geo-targeted page. So, that was one thing that people go, oh my gosh, we're doing geo-targeted pages. Google mentioned that. We're done. No, not at all, because look at how many pages are geo-targeted pages. Lots of services, they can't provide the service, from one county to the next, not alone, from one state to the next, So, no, a geo-targeted page is perfectly fine. Not a problem at all.
Yeah. Another thing that I definitely have thought about is that if you take Amazon.com, they are essentially using what Google defined as a doorway model, which is where they have multiple pages targeting long tail keywords, and they even specifically say this, including like parts numbers or different types of products. And so there's absolutely no difference between what we're doing with be it SERPspike or SERPshaker, where we're just building massive number of pages. It's exactly the same thing that eBay and Amazon's doing when they have a separate page for every single model of a product that's for sale.
I'm just looking at some of the questions. Brant, yeah, you're right. Your Flash welcome page business design probably has seen its day. Somebody's asking, do you guys think this update will affect websites that create multiple pages targeting different cities? No, that's what we do. I can tell you, you want to try and get as much unique content on there as possible. I wouldn't be using the same exact article and just spinning out and changing the name of the city. I wouldn't be doing that at all. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm a firm believer of never fall in love with a website because it'll never love you back, okay? Websites will come and go. You can't fall in love with one website. You just can't. If Google winds up hitting one of my sites, well, guess what? I just build a new one. Period. The end. Sometimes I'm building up, I build up multiple pages, multiple sites at one time, multiple domains. I know that I can build them faster than Google can de-index them. That's the one thing I'm definitely sure of.
Yeah, I think that's an important lesson for anybody that does SEO, and especially the brand of Black Hat SEO, is that you want all of your income streams to be diversified. It would be silly to fight probably I don't know if Google's the largest company now on the face of the earth, but they've got to be one of the biggest, and to fly in their face on a day-to-day basis and not expect that they're going to take a swipe at you here and there would be silly. And so if they do take a swipe and they happen to land a blow, let's just have it be one small segment of our overall revenue as opposed to the predominance of what we're doing. You'll really feel that.
Let me throw this out to you. When Google went after PBNs, how many of you guys said, I'm not doing PBNs anymore?
Never crossed my mind.
Yeah, right?
I'm sure that there were people that said that. I'm just curious about how many people here in the audience said, oh, well, man, it's time to give up. I can't build any more links. Google has said for I can't even tell you how long, right? We're going to go after links. We're going after links. Who here stopped building them?
Yeah, it's true. And I've noticed over the last 3 years that, there's been so much rhetoric about that. And yet it seems to me that here and now, where we are and where we've been in the last, say, 3 or 4 months, links are at least as powerful, if not more powerful now than they were, 2 or 3 years ago. And so
because people stopped building them.
Maybe that's it.
I don't think that it's more powerful. I think that a lot of people, honestly, they pulled links from their websites. I think a lot of your competitors probably pulled links from their website. So I don't think it's the fact that maybe your links are more powerful. It's just that they've lost them.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Well, one thing's for sure, it tends to be, it's a democratic process that Google respects. I mean, if they see a link, they award some attention to that if it comes from a site with good trust metrics. And so I don't see that changing. I don't know. I know there are things around the margin that they'll be able to do to target people who are sloppy with the places that where the links are generated from, link farms and really diverse, non-relevant content. I've seen some horrible examples of how people have tried to run these things, but I think if you put even a minimal amount of work into it, they're still incredibly powerful.
Oh, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that the links, looking at how you structure your website, as in having whatever doorway pages or landing pages or geo-targeted pages. Again, always just keep going back to what's working for the major sites, because Google, they don't want to step on those feet. Okay, they don't want to step on the feet of the WebMDs. And I think the major problem with links has been, previous in the past, before maybe 2 years ago, has been that people are doing just massive exact, anchored text because that's what they heard works. And for a time it did work. But guess what? As soon as Google sees that outside the bell curve trend, that's what they're going to hit. So as long as you stay within the bell curve, you will just fly under the radar because you're just in the shadow of the big jets. You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right. And Justin, you said it really well earlier too. The key is not to react to what Google says. The key is to watch a community like this. I know the four of us, I'm literally working, 15, 16 hours a day most days on this kind of stuff. And there's not much that I'm going to miss. And we know the same thing about Justin and Andrew and Jake, and not to mention all of our mastermind members and the people that are coming through our forums and our chat. We are, between all of us, we have an incredible amount of not just experience, but situational awareness of what's going on a day-to-day basis. And we will be the first people to not only identify what's really happening as opposed to being talked about, but also to work together to come up with the strategies that get around any bumps in the road.
Right on. That's where it is. So you definitely rely on us because we are not just in it on a daily basis. We're the soldiers walking the street, or the cops walking the beat, right? And then every week reporting back to you. So yeah, that's how it is.
All right, guys. Are we still answering questions? Here we go. No. Let's see. I don't see anything on my list that hasn't been dealt with.
How about the Ask Justin?
Are you guys still answering, or are we about done?
Ask Justin?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go.
Okay, woo!
Ask Justin.
Yes.
All right.
I love to have my name everywhere. We're doing a little segment, okay, that you can do with us, where you can submit questions to PM me questions, okay, on SemEasy. So you can look me up, friend me on SemEasy, okay, in the community there, and PM me questions throughout the week. And then on our weekly webinars right here, we'll hit like the top 2 or 3 questions, and we'll, answer, we'll give our input. I have to say that I'm no total expert. I eat and breathe SEO, but there's a lot of things I still don't know, So we all get to weigh in on it and give our feedback. And our question today, you know what, maybe I can bring it up here real fast. Actually, I'm going to take my screen off while I pull it up, okay? Give me just a moment. And you guys just fill the dead air. Go ahead, Joe. Sing a song.
I don't think anyone wants that to happen.
I'm sorry, I should have been prepared.
We're excited about this, Justin. Don't make us wait too long.
Okay, number 1, awesome graphic. I just saw it right on the front of SemEasy. Thank you, Jake. That is amazing. It's beautiful. You guys see what I'm looking at?
Do we have to
no problem.
do that?
Facebook with the fuck you finger.
Oh. Nice.
All right. So,
all right, Justin.
I know.
This is radio.
I'm sorry, everybody. So, well, I'll tell a story here. Actually, we had a one thing that
on what's happening with SERP Spike. Good job, guys.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit for that.
There's always changes and tweaks being made. They're actually in the servers right now working on some stuff. So if anybody sees their site down, it should be down momentarily. Be back up again shortly.
Yeah, and speaking of good reports too, Andres, who developed with Don SERP Shaker, has been an pretty active, relatively new member of the mastermind group that we've put together for SemEasy, and he's been keeping us updated on changes he's making to the plugin. So those of you who have had frustration